We got the two ends cut out and nailed onto the ends of the 2x2. Now that will be the gate. You cannot hinge it together. You got to make it so you can take it completely off. And I'm going to install it right now to show you how it goes in. So it goes in much easier with two hands, but since I'm holding the camera, that's the way it goes in. That's to be able to put beans in, then take out the hulls. Our next step, we want to build a door to go on the front, and it's going to be narrow enough that the beans can fall out under the bottom of it into a tray, which we'll build a tray later. Now we've got the door made. We left a small crack at the bottom. This is so the beans can fall out, and we're working on a tray. As you can see here on the floor, this will be what the beans fall into once they're shelled. Here we've got our basket covered with 1/2-inch mesh hardware cloth. Got it stapled in place real good. And now our next step, we're going to be mounting this basket on the inside of the butterbean sheller. Now that we've finished covering our basket with hardware cloth, our next step, we got to cover the lid. This is the lid. We're going to cover it with a hardware cloth also. Now that we've got the lid covered with 1/2-inch hardware cloth, I'll try to mount it on the basket with one hand. Continue videoing. See, it's notched out. Okay, that fitted pretty good. Alright, we will use some we went and purchased some hooks. They're just like an old-timey screen door hook, except it's got a spring on it. That spring will help keep it closed and latch as it's turning. Okay. Now we're ready to install the basket. So we've laid the machine on its side or on its back, whichever you want to call it, because we got to get those bearings and the basket to line up, and this way we won't have to pick it up and hold it so high up. And doing it by yourself, you have to take all the shortcuts you can. Now there's our axle rod. We're going to line it up with this bearing here. Going to line up with this bearing, with this bearing. Okay, before we install the basket, we got these little collar locks. They've got to be placed on the axle also, so we can lock them in place that keeps the axle from sliding back and forth on the basket, plus sliding back and forth on the box. Before you put your drive axle in, if you're going to use a regular fan belt, don't forget to install it before you put the axle in. It goes right here. But we're going to use twist lock belt, which here's an O piece. That's what it looks like. You can lock and unlock it any way you want to for your length. So we don't have to put a belt on right now because we're going to use this type of belt. I'll show you later. We've almost got the axle all the way through. Now we don't want to forget, you don't want to forget to install your locking collar around the axle. Well, I dropped it. There we go. Now if you'll notice, those locking collars are made where they're recessed on the inside so they'll fit over that bearing like it's supposed to. Alright, now we're going to finish pushing the axle the rest of the way through. Here you see we've got the axle all the way through, and our basket, it can turn freely. Something I didn't mention that I will bring up later is it's important knowing which way that basket is going to turn when you mount your motor. So I already figured mine out which way it's going to go, and you want the basket when it's turning to go in that direction towards the front. Why does that matter? Well, that gives you room on this side to mount your belts to turn the basket. And this side, you have your motor mounted to turn the axle shaft. Everything goes in the same direction. Now we're going to try to stand the thing back up in its working position. Okay, we've stood the machine back up and making sure we got about the same amount of axle sticking out on each side. We want to put on one more locking collar on this end. And then we're going to install this wheel. That wheel will be known as the flapper wheel. And what are the flappers? We'll get to that directly. We got the pulley installed, but it's running just a little too close to the box. So what we're going to do, we're going to pull that pulley back off and put some 3/4 washers behind it just for spacers to get it away from the box. Okay, before we put the spacers in, which is nothing more than some 3/4 washers, like that. I think 2's going to be enough. We want to go ahead and tighten up the Allen screw right here so we can get to it. Lock collar tightened up, the washer's in place, and now we want to reinstall what we call the flapper wheel. Okay, that gives us good clearance. Now I know you see this space right here. We could have turned this wheel around and that would have kept it away from the box, but you got these locks on top and we wouldn't be able to get to them back there in no manner, so we're going to turn it this way. Now we're going to lock it in place. The flapper wheel locked in place, and also the drive wheel, and we've got everything on this end locked in place. We're going to move down to the other end and install the other lock right here. Then we'll lock this in place. That means that axle cannot slide. The axle cannot slide any. It's got to stay in position right there. Next, we want to install the motor. Now, it won't go where you see it sitting. It's going to go somewhere right down here in this area. Right in this area. And we're going to determine how high up it's going to be by the length of the belt. Now here, we're going to use a regular fan belt, because if it wears out, it can easily be changed, because there's nothing going to be in the way of getting to it. Here we've mounted our motor, which is about a third or a half horsepower, 1725 RPMs. This is a 2-inch pulley, 5/8 belt, 5/8 bore. We want to put what we call the flappers in, which will be things that mounts on the shaft in here, as you'll see as we go along. Now we got our motor installed, we got our flappers installed, we have installed our gear. This reduces the barrel from turning so fast. You can see the flappers are turning. The basket picks up the beans, drops them down into the flappers, and these flappers are what really shells the beans out. Next, we have made a cover to go over the basket, and this cover is just be open and closed like this. Now that's to catch the beans from falling out while they're being shelled. Yes, and pop them up in the air. And once we put the beans in and start shelling them, we can pull this down. That's all it takes. That way we'll save all of our beans. Here.